So these aircraft were flown in the golden age of piston air transport. They really were the height of luxury at the time they were in service.
Prototype actually flew in 1943, way back when. And it came as part of a design request by Transcontinental and Western Airlines, later known by many of you as TWA, at the instigation of its major shareholder, Howard Hughes. And he wanted a 40-seat transcontinental airliner with pressurisation and a range of 3,500 miles. No more flying in DC-3s, cramped and slow.
I want to make it really nice in the cockpit. It was a pressurised cabin, so unlike the DC-3, which is unpressurised, when you'd get up to altitude, you could still be at a lower altitude in the actual cabin, which meant the aircraft could fly higher, fly further, and it's much more comfortable for the passengers.
Get out of the bad weather.
Get out of the bad weather.
Imagine flying over the Rockies in a DC-3.
Oh, it'd be fairly terrifying, I would imagine.
An interesting experience.
Yes. This is just such a graceful aircraft to watch, Ando.
If you have a look at the wing design, the wing plan form is very, very close to that of the P-38 fighter, also designed and built by Lockheed. That twin-engine, twin-boom aircraft that was famous during the Second World War and designed by Kelly Johnson, who now runs the Skunk Works, or Lockheed have this Skunk Works, which is the all-secret division.
Yeah, the Skunk Works is responsible for a number of aircraft, probably the most famous being the SR-71, which was Mach 3 capable, a little bit faster than Connie, which is out to the right, just coming down under the escarpment. But these engines, they were no slouches.
They had a lot of orders for these because they were so fast. Now this one is actually the Lockheed 1049. It is a what they call the Super Connie, and it has a cruise speed of about 480 kilometres an hour, which for the day was quite good. Maximum speed of about 7 kilometres an hour.
Yeah, and these engines, they're Wright duplex cyclones, which is quite complex. 3,200 horsepower.
Turbo compounds, the exhaust driving turbos, which then put their power back into the engine itself. Well, that is absolutely beautiful. They had about 84 orders by Pan Am and TWA and an unidentified customer that they thought could have been Japanese prior to the outbreak of World War II. But when America got into World War II, there was no authorization for the manufacture of commercial aircraft anymore. So they went into the military. And they were called C-69s to start off with. C for cargo, and 69 being the designation for the type. They used them right the way through the war, and they ordered hundreds of these things. Those and the DC-4s provided their heavy lift transport long range across the Atlantic.
They actually survived quite a while in US military service. They survived all the way into the Vietnam War, where they were used as early warning aircraft. So they sit off the coast, listening out for electronic signals of service to missile launches, and then announce that to all the fighter pilots flying in the war zone.
It's like the Neptune. They can find a niche operation. This aircraft actually started off as a C-121, which was the cargo version of the aircraft used for transport, and Haas calls it Southern Preservation. It served with a number of units over there, first delivered in 1955, later went to the Mississippi, West Virginia and Pennsylvania Air National Guards. High-speed pass.
Just 200 feet above the ground, absolutely amazing. Now, it's a fairly busy crew up the front end. You have the pilot, the co-pilot, obviously sitting in the front left and right seats. There's a flight engineer, navigator, radio operator. So you can actually see photos of the cockpit. There are switches everywhere.
Switches and dials. Famous story about one of the pilots flying long range, and he was having a bit of a kip. He had his cap over his head. First officer said, we have a red light. He said, whose panel's it on? The flight engineers. let him fix it. But you can imagine the engine management that went into the long-range flying. These pioneered really the kangaroo route, the modern kangaroo route for Qantas all the way to London. Look at that beautiful aircraft out there. Magnificently flown today by Bob Delahunty, who's the president and one of the founders of the Historic Aircraft Restoration Society. Lots of people have been involved with Haas over many years, including good friend Gordon Glynn, who is sadly no longer with us, but very much missed down here by everyone at Haas.
Just thinking about these aircraft taking 3 to 5 days to get all the way to London. It was the quickest way you could actually get there at the time, so it feels like a long time to us now, but it would have been very luxurious. Stopping into Singapore, spending a night at a hotel.
Sitting in the front bar at Raffles.
Sounds horrible.
Now, these engines were actually developed out of the engine fitted to the B-29 Super Fortress bomber of World War II. Now, they suffered a lot in development in the very, very early stages, and so Qantas actually had engines at every stop all the way to London. Some wags said it was the best 3-engine aircraft that Qantas ever operated.
That's a little bit cheeky, I think.
Now, this machine was a bit of an accident by Haas, because they had gone to Davis Monthan Air Base to look and see if they could find spares and engines for their Lockheed Neptune, which we saw earlier on today. And they were told about this Connie that was there, and they evinced a bit of interest in it and eventually acquired it. The reason it was there was because it was supposed to be scrapped. However, somebody had actually left one of the cockpit windows open, and over a long period of time the pigeons got in, and pigeons do what pigeons do, and the scrappy said, no, we can't take it because it'll contaminate the metal. Therefore, they just left it. So Haas acquired the aircraft. They took out over half a tonne of pigeon guano from the airframe. 5 years of continuous work. They did about 16,000 man hours in 47 team return trips to the USA of 14 days each. Altogether, they raised about $800,000 in cash and got sponsorship services. And on the 25th of September 1994, this aircraft undertook its first post-restoration flight, landing in February 1996 at Sydney Airport. What a magnificent achievement.
Yeah, absolutely amazing, the hard work that Haas has put in over such a long period of time. And if you keep your eyes out to the left, you can see it coming in on its final approach. Once it lands, it'll eventually go into reverse thrust. So that's where the angle of the blade changes and pushes the air forwards instead of backwards.
Really was the golden age of flying. Sitting there with a real porcelain plate, real knives and forks, real food.
And a comfy